Hello, sweet friend. My name is Micah, and in this video, I'm very excited to show you how to draw some easy tree doodles for your journals. These consist of very simple shapes and simple lines, and I'm going to show you how to draw them step by step and in real time so that you can draw along with me. These trees are beginner friendly and a lot of fun to customize to your journaling aesthetics via colors and textures, but I'll get into that later in this video. For now, grab a marker that strikes your fancy at this moment. For me, that's going to be this Tombow in the color 992. The first trees that I'm going to show you are based on very simple geometric shapes. So let's start out by drawing an oval, and this oval is going to have a wider top and bottom. So it's not a full-on ellipses, but something that has more of a flat top and bottom. But again, the great thing about things in nature is that you don't have to be too precise. A little bit of organicness to the shape is actually quite charming. So we're going to let that dry, the marker dry, and we're going to come back with our lines in just a moment and add a trunk to the tree. And then the next very simple organic shape, of course, is a circle. So let's go ahead and just draw a nice circle. And as you can already tell with my example here, it is not a perfect circle, and that is a-okay. Again, we are going to embrace the charm that comes from doodling by hand, and that is just like nature, that it's not all perfectly geometrical. And then the next shape we're going to draw in is a triangle, and you can play around with how pointy you want your corners to be. You can round them off a little bit, but you can also keep them fairly straight. That is up to you, whatever you prefer there. And we're just going to fill that in. All right. And then for the last geometric shape, or the more simpler geometric shape, we're going to make a rounded off square. So overall, we want to have it more or less be a square, but then the corners are definitely sort of rounded corners. And even the sides can have a little bit of a bow to them so that they're not full on straight. But it can also be very fun to play around with making that really, really straight. But more or less think of it as a rounded off square or rectangle. I think mine is more a little bit more of a rectangle than a perfect square. Okay, and now I'm going to show you how to make some tree trunks. Very fun. And for this, you want a black fine liner or some black fountain pens. Also very fun. That's what I'm going to use here. And I think I'm going to zoom you in a little further to help you see a little bit better how I'm constructing these very simple tree trunks. How's that? For the tree trunks, we are going to let the tree trunk basically split off into 3 branches that consist of very narrow triangles. So, for example, we're going to let the tree trunk grow up into the tree, and now I'm going to split off in a very thin triangle for the first branch. And then I'm going to have a little bit of the longer branch go up in the middle. And then I'm not going all the way back to this point, but we want to introduce a little bit of asymmetry here. So I'm going about halfway back down, and then going to add a branch on the other side, and then going back down to finish off the tree trunk. Now, for a very graphic look, you can just go ahead and fill that in with black all the way. And if you'd like a little bit more of a textured look, then you can create some like scratchy lines with black, but let some of the paper show through, and that way you're sort of indicating a little bit of bark, which is quite fun. And I'm going to show you how else to stylize bark with another tree here in just a moment. And there you have it, your first very simple tree. I think it's very stylish and very, very fun to make. And the same goes for our circle tree here. You can play around with proportions. So for example, with these more broad shapes, like they're very wide, like the circle or even our rounded off square, I like to make the trunks a little thicker at the base. And then I'm also keeping the branches that grow into the foliage a little shorter and more stout in a way. But the basic construction is the same. We have a little indicated branch on the left. We're going up a little higher for the middle, and then we're coming down again about halfway and introducing a branch on the right side, and then going back down towards the base of the trunk. Now mine got a little bit angled, but that's fine. That just introduces uniqueness and character to our little trees. And then what you can also do, instead of filling it in all the way with black or these scratchy lines, you can embrace the scratchiness a little bit further and just go over it with lines that are somewhat parallel, but just start to cover the area here. Almost like you're, well, I guess it is cross-hatching with your ink. And then you just let even more of the paper show through. That's really a really fun look, I think, as well. Now when it comes to our triangle tree, you can play around with embracing symmetry. So with these ones, we've obviously focused on the asymmetrical alignment of the branches. But maybe for this one, because it's such a stark geometric shape, you're just leaning into that by keeping your branches straight. And so we're just going to draw in a very, very narrow triangle for the tree trunk that actually goes all the way to the top, and we're keeping it pretty skinny. And now you can just branch off of this skinny middle into your branches, and again, like do them symmetrical. But if the symmetry is a little too stark for you, of course you can also make them asymmetrical. Still go all the way up with your tree trunk and then keep them symmetrical. This got a little wide there, but that's okay. I'm also very aware that I'm doing this while talking. Typically things turn out a little bit more wobbly when drawing and filming, but that's quite all right. And then again, with our very wide shape, with this one here, I again want to keep the trunk very short. And with this one, I want to show you, you can just draw in the trunk, but don't have it branch into the tree, because I'm going to show you a couple of fun ways to introduce some line work inside of the shape. So we're just going to add this trunk here for now, and then we're going to come back to this tree in a little bit. But for now we're leaving it at that. As I said, this first set of trees is based on very simple geometric shapes. Now for the second set of trees, I want to show you how you can make trees that are based on the shape of leaves. Very, very fun. So if you just imagine a leaf, and maybe I should have looked up what kind of tree they come from, but this leaf is almost like a teardrop shape. So at the top it has this almost like a triangle, but it is a little bit curved. It curves to both sides. And then the base is similar to our first tree here, where we have a elliptical rounded off bottom. So from our little, almost like a, I guess like a tent here up top, we're going to go round down here and up, back up, and connecting that. And maybe one of you knows what kind of tree has these kind of leaves, and you can again play around with just the proportions of it, like how far down do you go with the triangle, how thick does it get at the bottom, that sort of thing. So again, we're going to let that dry. And then for the next one, I think this leaf is, I think from an acorn tree, if I'm not mistaken. So we're going to have lots of smaller loops almost at the sides. And maybe this one, you watch me draw it first, because I don't quite know how better to describe it as loops. So we're going to have a little loop at the top, and then we're going to have smaller loops just going down the sides, and then we're going to do a similar curving here at the bottom, so go inward a little bit, and then we're going to do the same thing on the other side. Loop, 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 and curving inward to connect to the other side. So yeah, do you know that kind of leaf? And again, you can also play around with having these asymmetrical. There's lots of fun to have with playing around with proportion, which is just part of the charm of these doodles that I'm showing you in this series. They are made up of such simple shapes that it is a lot of fun to play around with them, both in the proportions as well as with the materials you draw them with, but more on that in a moment here. Okay, let's add some tree trunks to those trees. For this kind of shape, I think it's really nice to do something similar to our triangular tree, which is to have a rather skinny tree trunk. But I think this time I'm going to have the branches be asymmetrical. I think the slimmer tree trunk just goes with that almost elegant shape of it. I think that's really nice. Maybe we have a tree trunk, a branch up here, and then maybe we just add another one down here and just have it at 2. Of course, you can also play around with having another branch come off of these main branches. That can be really nice, like so. And maybe a small one up here. That's kind of cute. And maybe I'll zoom you in a little further so you can actually see. That's helpful, isn't it? So yeah, here we have the leaf shape with the slimmer trunks and then a couple of branches going off. Now here with our inspired by an acorn leaf tree, we're also, I think, going to do a very slim tree trunk right down the middle, like so. And then I think it's nice to, again, have slim branches. And with these ones, it's nice to somewhat line them up to hit the middle of one of these curves here. so they're somewhat pointing into the middle of the curve, if that makes sense. And this is just like the veins inside of a leaf. I mean, you're quite literally just drawing a leaf, but you're pretending that it's a tree. That one might have been a little too low. I'm not sure if the, well, maybe if we add a branch here and maybe we have an off branch here, and again pointing that to the middle there, that balances it out a little bit. Maybe one here. Very cute. Now lastly, I want to show you different ways of adding lines to the big shape of the foliage. So I've drawn up 2 trees where the trunk again only goes up until where the shape of the foliage starts. So we are not drawing any branches on the inside. I just drew one that is again our first tree, where it's sort of this little bit of a fattened up ellipses and our rounded off square here. Now for this one, it's quite fun. You're just going to fill this big shape with squiggly lines, as if you're pretending to write. You know how as a child, when you couldn't quite write, or if you want to just pretend like somebody has written a lot of cursive, you just do these loops. And so we're just going to go loop, 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 loop until the end of the shape. And then you're just going to do a couple of rows until all of it is filled. And it's quite fun to have the loops overlap a little bit here and there to really fill this shape up. And it's just a really fun graphic effect that is maybe quite far removed from indicating actual leaves, but somehow it still makes sense, and it's just a really fun and unique look. There's just a lot going on there, and it's very, very simple to draw. Another thing you can try, if this is maybe a little bit too much, you can do simple, almost like waves or curves that go in short lines. So I'm going curve, 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 and then you can do multiple ones, maybe offset one on the right side, and then maybe here one on the left side, and then one again on the right side, and that's really fun too. And then lastly, or no, 2 more things actually, not lastly. I'm going to show you one more way of filling a big shape like that with very simple lines, and that is to just do short, straight strokes, like so. And then you're just gonna, again, do that in rows and maybe offset them so that the next row fills in the gaps from the previous row. And that again just adds a fun graphic texture onto the big shape. And if you're more into a more realistic depiction of leaves, again I'm going to zoom you in, then another fun thing you can play around with on trees that do have these kinds of branches is that at the tip of these triangles where your branches end, you can add little leaves. Just do the typical elliptical pointy leaf shape, just very, very simple. And then it looks like the leaves are growing out of the branches, of course. And I think it's just a really cute and whimsical way to indicate all of this is leaves, but you're not having to draw all those leaves, you're just indicating them, and then maybe you can, on some of these branches, you can also have them on the sides there. Isn't that so cute? And again, you can do that with this also, of course, but yeah, just a really, really simple way to have some leaves indicated without having to draw a lot of them. What do you think? These are just so simple and fun to make, and I'm now going to show you some variations of these if you want to play around with different media. These ones, for example, I drew up with some fountain pen ink. I had ordered some ink samples, and not all of them I enjoyed using for writing, so I have a lot of just ink left over, and I finally found a really good use for them because look how fun that is, especially with this shimmer ink. It really looks like a fall tree that's starting to turn from green to maybe a little bit more brown, and so this is quite cute. Again, also with you can put lots of different trees together in a constellation like that. Of course, this would also be really beautiful if you did them with watercolor, and there's nothing else to it other than you paint your shape first and then you add your tree trunks and your branches. Of course, you can also play around with having them in lines only. Again, you just draw your shape for the foliage and then you add the trunk in there, and then it looks very minimalistic but cute, and I think that's also quite effective. I hope you really enjoyed drawing these trees with me and that you're going to start adding them onto your journal spreads. If you found this video helpful, please click the like button. It tells me that I'm making content that is helpful to you, but it also means that this video will reach more journalers so that they too can start adding their own doodles to their journals. If you want to learn more simple doodles like this, there's a playlist with all of the easy journal doodle videos that I've made so far, so please check that out. And if you have any requests for this series, please leave them in the comments. I'm more than happy to make that happen. And thanks so much for sharing this time with me. Until next time, happy journaling!